from Alan Amici diving into our living rooms to John Madden teaching us to draw, TV and the NFL have grown up together. Monday night, you can relive it all with Replay, the history of the NFL on television, including a special look back at the beginnings of Monday Night Football. Monday night at 8:30, then again at midnight on ESPN2.
The education of Dandy Don continues. We await the fun.
So we saw a sneak preview of that show on Thursday night here in New York, and that is must-watching because we've all grown up watching football on TV. That'll be Monday night. But right now, we're all over the league as this draft is going fast and curiously. Let's start our whip around to many of our cities with Mark Malone in Indy. Mark?
The Colts exercised the ghost of Dan Marino by selecting Peyton Manning first overall in this year's NFL draft. Peyton is supposed to arrive here in Indianapolis in about 2 hours. Meanwhile, the Colts go back into the war room. Their next pick at number 32, their needs at wide receiver and cornerback. Now let's check in with Mike Golick.
In Arizona, the Cardinals get their man in Andre Wadsworth and look for an immediate impact. The easy part of the draft is over. Now with 2 early second-round picks at number 33 and number 36, VP of Player Personnel Bob Ferguson gets down to work. With only 2 safeties on the Cardinals' current roster, look for them to go in that area if the top safeties on their board fall to them early in that round. Let's send it over to Chris Myers.
Here in Dallas, the Chan Gailey era begins with the drafting of a defensive lineman, and live behind us, the new head coach of the Cowboys and Jerry Jones are holding a news conference. Go ahead, gentlemen. I know you have work to do, but they had need positions at wide receiver and at defensive end. A question of character came under fire with Randy Moss, and Dallas opted for Greg Ellis. It's worth repeating when Mac Brown, his college coach, told the Cowboys, hey, this is a guy, if I died tomorrow, Greg Ellis, I'd want raising my children. They said this is a character guy who can play football, and he can rush from either end as well. Right now, let's go to Andrea Kramer.
Here in Jacksonville, Tom Coughlin had a need at running back. He just filled it with running back Fred Taylor from Florida. He stays in the state, doesn't have far to go to visit his new team. Coughlin tried to move up to the 5 slot, the Chicago Bears, to get Curtis Enis. Instead, he settles for Taylor, and at the 25th spot, he'll look for cornerback help. Tom Coughlin yesterday went through his draft board with me. It's gone exactly as he anticipated. So now let's go to Solomon Wilcox.
Here in Cincinnati, the Bengals have 5 of the first 77 picks in the draft, 2 of which will be the 13th and 17th pick in the first round. Look for the Bengals to go heavy on the defensive side of the ball, with linebackers and cornerbacks topping the menu. Now that St. Louis is taking Grant Winstrom, the Bengals will now turn their attention to the likes of linebacker Keith Brookings from Georgia Tech and to Keo Spikes from Auburn. But don't be surprised if the Bengals should make a reach with one of those first-round picks and take an offensive tackle to shore up depth for the offensive line. Now let's send it out to Sal Palantonio.
Here in New England, the Patriots are still trying to move up. They lost out on Fred Taylor, they lost out on Curtis Enis, and now they're talking to the Baltimore Ravens about that number 10 pick. So are the Oakland Raiders, and they are targeting Randy Moss. As for New England, Pete Carroll is probably wondering to himself, when is he going to get that stud running back to replace Curtis Martin? Now let's go to Chris Mortensen.
Surprisingly, there has been only one trade in the NFL today. Not surprisingly, that was made by Jimmy Johnson and the Miami Dolphins. He is again stockpiling picks. That's his M.O. He's got 3 in the second round. Now let's go to Hank Goldberg.
Green Bay, where Ron Wolf predicted there would be a lot of trading today. Well, he didn't let anybody down. As Mort just told you, he got out of the second round and traded up to Miami to get their 19th pick. He needs defensive help, secondary defensive line being the key areas. They weren't inactive here totally today. Besides the trade, they signed Doug Weidel, a left guard from the Colts. He'll compete with Aaron Taylor leaving for free agency. Now let's go to Linda Cohn.
We're in Charleston, West Virginia with Randy Moss, and sure, Randy wishes he would have been picked higher, but he remains upbeat. So does his camp. Why? Because the Cowboys and Raiders are keeping in touch here and saying there's still a possibility there could be a trade to get Randy Moss. Chris Berman in New York, back to you.
All right, gang, thank you. And we'll be back out to all our sites. But right now on the Sprint video conference, one of our tools that we had a lot of fun with last year, let's go out to Chicago and join the head coach of the Chicago Bears, Dave Wanstead. And David, I guess the thanks for joining us and good day to you. I guess the phones are ringing off the hook, but in the end, Enis was just too good to pass up, or were there deals that you're still scratching your head over that the Bears decided not to make?
No, this was something that Mark Hatley, Bill Reese, Mike McCaskey, we talked about for the last couple of weeks as far as, what the value that we thought Curtis Enos would come under in this draft, and we were very determined that he could help our football team, and we were not going to just give up Curtis Enos and drop down just for the sake of doing it. So we're really excited about having Curtis, and I think there's no question that he'll have an impact on our football team and help us win games this year.
Dave, one of the positions which you have now, some extra players, or good players, are at running back. I'm not asking you to predict the trade yet, but could the Bears make some moves, keep Enos, and then move? I mean, you got Edgar Bennett. That's one of the areas where you're stocked. I imagine some will not be Bears next year.
Yeah, we are, and that's something that we've thought through if this situation did happen like it did today. And what we'll have to do is we got minicamp coming up next week, and we'll deal with all the players and at that time.
You've got your hands full with every team except the Bears making the playoffs. Good luck on your move up the ladder, and get back to that war room. Thanks for joining us, Dave.
Okay, Chris, good talking to you.
Dave Wannstedt in Chicago. The pick is in for Baltimore at the 10 hole.
A 10 spot. With the 10th pick in the draft, the Baltimore Ravens select defensive back from the University of Miami, Dwayne Starks.
Well, they lose Antonio Langham to free agency at the corner to San Francisco. This certainly adds up, Mel.
Well, it does. I think when you look at a need area, this is a guy here that will be plugged right into a starting position opposite probably Rod Woodson. See the ability there against Florida State in a big game. That's against Peter Work, the outstanding receiver at Florida State. Here against Thad Busby again, makes the play in coverage. You see the closing speed there, the ability to make up ground in a hurry. Now you watch him down in the red zone area on a route that's very difficult to defend for a 5'10", 170-pound corner, not for Dwayne Starks. Here you see the athleticism and speed as a punt returner for Dwayne Starks. So as I said, Chris, only 5'10", 175 pounds, but he's a 4.30 recovery speed corner. He also has great athletic ability, and he's experienced the last 2 years in that man coverage. The only thing about Dwayne Starks, even at Miami, despite that great ability, he did play a little soft in terms of man coverage at times, gave mediocre receivers a little bit too much cushion. With Baltimore Ravens, they have the pass rush with Bolware and that great group of linebackers and that defensive line that played well last year towards the end. He's going to be protected in terms of coverage by that front seven.
He is fast, he is tough, but he's skinny, Joe. He's short. I mean,
he's small.
He's got to cover some big guys.
He does. If you take a look at the division, look at the wide receivers that play in this division, Yancey Thigpen, and look at their heights. Not their yards so much, but their heights. Jimmy Smith, McCardell, Michael Jackson, Darnay Scott, Carl Pickens. And you've got some big receivers that he's going to match up against. I personally think that to find somebody with quickness and the ability to cover one-on-one overrides the fact of him being 6 feet or 6'1". I think this is a good pick for Baltimore here. Quickness can make up for such a difference because quarterbacks, contrary to what popular belief is, we're not the most accurate people all the time in the world. I think you put the ball places sometimes where guys have to make plays. If you've got a defensive back that's quick enough to be able to be around it, he can be a playmaker for him, and I think Starks can.
Now we move to the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles, Ray Rhodes is one heck of a coach. There's no question about that. But the Eagles picks, this slot...
Where are you going with this one?
No, the Eagles picks lately have become what Arizona used to be, what Cincinnati used to be. Other teams go, oh, they picked him, great. Our guy's still available, a little bit lower. Ray's made some interesting picks. This is a key year for the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's go to our Sal Paolantonio for some insight on Philly. Sal?
Well, Chris, as you know, the Eagles have a problem with Bobby Taylor coming back from a knee injury, and they do need a corner, and they like Dwayne Starks a lot. Matter of fact, they sent down their security personnel to Miami to check out Dwayne Starks. He checked out fine, and they were planning to really look hard at taking him with that 11th pick. Ozzie Newsome, the Baltimore Ravens personnel guy, knew this, and he thought, if I trade out of 10, I'm going to miss out on Dwayne Starks, and that's the reason why they pulled the trigger in Baltimore on picking Dwayne Starks. Now let's go back to New York.
All right, Sal, thank you. So there's the Starks pick, and we look at Philadelphia. Well, we're going to be looking at Philadelphia for the next 12 minutes. Still to come when we return here to the theater.